You know all that music from the 90s? The songs that basically defined a generation? Well, what if I told you that the artists behind those timeless tracks don't actually own their own work? For decades, that was the reality. But a quiet legal revolution is happening right now, giving these creators a second chance to reclaim their legacy. So, how is this possible? Let's dive in with a story that, honestly, is way too common.
Okay, to really get this, let's talk about Jada Rhythm. Now, she's a fictional artist, but her story is incredibly real for so many people. Back in 1991, her album Soulfire was an absolute smash. But behind the scenes, a teenage Jada had signed away the rights to her own masterpiece. This quote just nails it. She had the magic, but the label literally owned the wand.
And Jada's story is anything but unique. A shocking 68% of musicians look back on that first big contract with major regret. This isn't just a couple of artists getting a bad deal, it was a systemic problem, basically the price of admission, baked right into these super complicated and, let's be honest, often predatory contracts at the time.
So what exactly was this trap? Well, to get a shot at fame, artists like Jada were pushed into what you'd call draconian deals, contracts that were just incredibly harsh and totally one-sided. They were forced to trade the single most valuable thing they had, the ownership of their master recordings, just for a chance to be heard.
Let's really break down what that means. The artist gets an advance, which sounds great, right? But it's not a gift, it's a loan. The label that has to recoup or pay itself back, not just for the advance, but for everything, marketing, music videos, studio time, all from the artist's tiny royalty share, which was often 15% or even less. The result? So many artists never saw another dime, even on albums that went multi-platinum. Insane, right?
For decades, it really seemed like there was no way out of these deals. But here's where it gets interesting. A little-known provision in a law passed way back in 1976 is now sending shockwaves through the entire industry. It's a legal escape hatch that is just now opening up for the icons of the 90s. It's all about Section 203 of the Copyright Act. What it does is give creators a one-time shot to terminate those old copyright transfers and get their rights back after 35 years. And here's the real kicker. This right is inalienable. That means it cannot be signed away, waived, or sold, no matter what the fine print in that old contract says.
Okay, so how does this actually play out? Let's say an album dropped in 1990. A 35-year clock started ticking right then. That clock runs out in 2025. When it does, a 5-year window opens up for the artist to file the paperwork and take back their rights. Once they pick a date within that window and it passes, boom, that masterpiece is theirs again. It's a pretty simple concept with absolutely massive implications.
And this isn't just some dusty legal theory. We're talking about a ticking clock on some of the biggest albums you know and love. Dr. Dre's game-changing album, The Chronic, from 1992, its termination window opens up in 2027.
What about Public Enemy's masterpiece, Fear of a Black Planet, released in 1990? Its window is open right now, as of 2025.
Or how about Mariah Carey's blockbuster self-titled debut from 1990? Yep, that's also eligible for reversion as we speak. This just shows you the sheer scale of the shift happening in the industry.
And A Tribe Called Quest's jazz-infused classic, The Low-End Theory from 1991, it becomes eligible in 2026. And that, right there, is why a law from 1976 is suddenly a huge deal for all that 90s music we grew up with.
But, of course, it's not that simple. Reclaiming these rights is never an easy fight. The record labels aren't just letting this happen. They have a massive counter-argument they use to block these terminations, and it all comes down to 3 little words: work for hire.
Okay, so here's the legal chess match. If you're an independent artist, you create the music, and then you transfer the rights to the label. That means you can terminate that transfer later. But if the label argues you are basically an employee creating a work for hire, then they are considered the legal author from day one. And you can't terminate a right you never legally had in the first place. It's a legal loophole that tries to erase the artist's claim entirely.
And this isn't just a fictional problem for our artist Jada. This is happening for real, right now. The iconic duo Salt and Peppa filed to get the rights back to their classic albums. And Universal Music Group's response? You guessed it. They rejected the claim, saying the music was work made for hire. That case is in court, and you better believe the entire industry is watching to see who wins.
So, how did our artist Jada fight back and actually win this thing? Well, her journey really breaks down into 4 key steps. First, she had to confirm she was eligible and that she wasn't a work for hire.
Second, she served a formal, legally airtight notice to the label. Third, she filed that notice with the U.S. Copyright Office to make it a public record. And finally, number 4, she geared up for the inevitable fight, which for her ended in a successful settlement.
And this is where the story gets really good. Jada has won. She now owns the master recordings to her classic album, Soulfire. So, what's next? What can an artist actually do with their reclaimed work?
Well, first and foremost, let's talk about the money. Under her old deal, Jada was lucky to see maybe 15 cents of every dollar her music made. Now, by putting her music out independently on modern platforms, she can keep upwards of 85 cents on the dollar. That difference isn't just significant, it's absolutely life-changing.
And ownership just opens up a whole new playbook. She can re-release her albums with remastered audio, add bonus tracks, she can license her music directly for big money deals in movies, TV, and ads, cutting out the middleman completely. Or she can pull a Taylor Swift and record Jada's versions, which fans love, but it also strategically tanks the value of the old masters. She is finally in complete control of her art and her business.
And the possibilities get even wilder. An artist like Jada could explore really cutting-edge tech, like music tokenization. Basically, it lets her sell small shares of her song's future royalties directly to her fans, turning people who just listen into actual financial partners. It's a way to fund new art while sharing the success directly with the community that supports her, all handled transparently on the blockchain.
You know, Jada's story isn't just about one artist's victory. The huge, looming threat of all these copyrights reverting is forcing the entire music industry to change its ways. And that's leading to much, much fairer deals for the next generation of artists.
And the shift is pretty dramatic. The old deal was a permanent transfer of ownership pretty much forever. The new deal, it's moving towards limited-term licenses. Those low royalty rates are being replaced by actual 50-50 profit splits. Vague work-for-hire language is getting swapped for crystal-clear independent creator status. The balance of power is finally, slowly, starting to tip back towards the person who actually made the music.
So what's the takeaway for an artist who's just starting out today? You have to learn from the past. Insist on being an independent contractor. Fight for licensing deals instead of just giving away ownership forever. Negotiate for the right to re-record your music later on. And the most important thing of all, always get a good lawyer to read that contract before you even think about signing.
This 35-year rule has kicked open a door that was locked shut for decades. It represents a potential multi-billion-dollar transfer of wealth and creative control back to the artists who actually earned it. And as this wave continues to sweep across the legendary catalogs of the 90s, it leaves us all with one massive question. Who's next?